All right, howdy folks. Welcome back to Top Comics Pressing. In this video, we have a interesting copy of the Avengers #4 here. This is the first Silver Age appearance of the Captain America. So for those of you that don't know, Captain America goes all the way back to World War II era, and he has an incredible run of comic books through the Timely title before Marvel was Marvel. But, you know, throughout the 50s, the character kind of lost some steam. And then when Jack Kirby and Stan Lee kind of kicked off the Marvel Age, as it is now being called, or referred to, Captain America got to re-emerge in Avengers #4 and ultimately became the leader of the Avengers. Of course, since it is Avengers #4, we'll notice he was not part of the original crew in Avengers 1. However, this is one of my ultimate favorite Marvel covers, probably one of the top 5 Marvel covers of all time. I mean, I think this thing is right up there with Amazing Fantasy 15, you know, Amazing Spider-Man 39, you know, Hulk 181, some of those like really just epic, true, amazing comic books. This copy is overall pretty good if it weren't for being completely smushed in the wrong direction. So we can see up here, you know, we have exposed wraps at the top, we have exposed wraps down the side, and you can even see the front cover there not sitting nice and tight, and that's going to be the same over here too. So, you know, lots of inner wraps. And so this thing, I think, is gonna ultimately gonna need to be flattened and refolded, and that's gonna be quite nerve-wracking and very stressful, because if you look, that bottom staple is pretty recessed, and so, you know, there's going to be a high probability that that thing breaks through on the cover, unfortunately. So I did consult the owner, and they were okay taking the risk that that staple is going to pop, mostly because at the moment it's in pretty rough condition, being kind of splayed out. The other defects, you know, there is a good amount of creasing right through here, so that is a pretty large crease. You can see that there's another crease down there, and there is a dust shadow up here, as well as a pretty noticeable stain, and then another big crease right here. So this thing's going to be solidly, I would put it at kind of a high mid-grade. You know, as it sits right now, maybe a 4.5, and hopefully after we flatten it out, you know, we might be able to get it up to a 5.0 copy. Good news is it's not missing any pieces, so that's good. There are no large stains, so yes, this is a stain, but given the overall space on the cover, you know, it's not a large one. It does have some creasing, but it doesn't have any of those multi-folded creases, you know, where the corner is, you know, squished in a whole bunch of different ways, kind of all on the same edge. And there is a tear here that is quite noticeable. That probably goes through the issue, so that's where somebody had read it and rolled it around. So, you know, a lot of work to do on this one. It's by no means a super high grade copy, but gosh, it's just such a beautiful comic. Now, in terms of its whiteness and brightness, we're not going to really attempt a whole lot of stain removal or whitening on this book. You know, the interior is really immaculate. The interior cover, you know, it has a little bit of tanning on the interior bottom there, and there's some on the interior top. Up here, you can see where the comic has been exposed out from under the inner wraps. But in general, you know, it's just kind of a healthy cream color. The pages look really nice. There you go. Stan Lee, illustrated by Jack Kirby. What a truly epic comic book. So I think this one's just going to kind of hang out after a press. So we're going to do a dry clean, then we're going to flatten it. Hopefully we'll be able to refold the spine super carefully, I think. And then hopefully we'll be able to get it a final press and then sent off for encapsulation. All right. Here we are back with this copy of the Avengers #4. We're just going to give this thing a dry clean. And I'm just going to start right here. We're going to unfortunately be putting some stress on the spine as part of the spine roll correction attempt. And so I'm going to try not to put a whole lot more on there right now. Now for this spine roll attempt, both because of the age of this book and because of, you know, how severe it is, I'm actually going to hydrate the cover a little bit before we even start that, just to try to give the paper fibers down that spine a little bit of extra flexibility. So what I don't want to do is open it up to the center and put a lot of heat and pressure on the inside out of fear that that might crack the spine. So we're going to try to give it just, probably half the humidity I might normally do for a book at a press, and hopefully that'll help just loosen up the fibers on the spine enough where we can work on it from the interior. A little bit of a fingerprint up here next to the wasp. This really is one of my favorite Marvel covers. It's just, I love everything about it. Captain America is centered, has a nice bright white background with a beautiful red logo. I think that there's a wonderful just kind of subconscious red, white, and blue that you kind of see while you're looking at it because of the white background and the blue on Captain America and the red on Iron Man and the Wasp and Thor. All right, again, I'm putting a backer board under here so that we can clean this top area without fearing of damaging or increasing the paper. So it's just there to support it. Whatever this is looks like it's damaged. It's not going to dry clean out, so we're just going to leave that. There's a lot more creasing up here through the word Avengers when you look at it a little bit more close. And this whole top corner here is just really smushed in, so we're going to hope to be able to fix that. One of the fears I have on this book is that I hope after we flatten it out, it actually lines up and CGC doesn't think that part of the cover was trimmed when it was really just horribly miswrapped and mangled. I've labeled more than a few books as trimmed that I don't think have been. Let's see, I actually missed out on a really beautiful Golden Age Batman book. I was trying to bid up. It was a 9.0 copy. It was marked trimmed, and I don't think it actually was trimmed. I think it was a miswrap that CGC mislabeled, and I was totally willing to risk it. But for as much time as I spend with comic books, I'm not really a deep-pocketed collector, so somebody with deeper pockets really wanted that one. They were probably thinking the same thing I was. Not a ton here, not a ton to clean off. Looks overall quite nice, so kind of hoping I might have gotten some of this crud over here, but I don't think it's gonna. It's definitely staining, not just surface goobies. You do have to check. Every now and again you get lucky. The Daredevil 16 that came with this one had what I thought was staining on the back, and as I started to dry clean it, it just all came off, and that was pretty cool. It does happen. Not often, but it does happen. I don't think I'm going to want to get closer to the spine. The staple we want to be very careful around. It is bulging and unhappy. So. And the top cover had the cover exposed on the, the front had the cover exposed on the top. The back is across the bottom, so we're just going to slide that under there. Part of the reason I think that this will be a successful realignment as well is if you look up here, that gap is not that much smaller than the gap down here. It is smaller, but it's not like it's by 2x or anything like that. So I think that lines up reasonably well. And when we refold this thing, we're gonna have to be very careful not to split the spine. So. Try to make sure it has some humidity in it before we start working on it. This I think is actually pencil, but I'm not going to try to do anything severe on that yellow. It's just too easy to make the yellow look really bad by removing some of it. A little bit of staining or something up here. Definitely some dead gloss. Missed before, right above the good doctor's head. A little bit more right there too. Okay, I think that's gonna be about it for the dry clean. Just one more little patch here, and that'll be it. So, now what we're gonna do is just get this thing in the humidity chamber. A little bit of light cockling right there. Yeah, so this thing's seen some moisture at some point, at least along that top area. Okay, well, we'll come on back with it here in a minute. Do want to point something out here as I was getting this ready for the humidity tank. You can notice that the top staple is quite shiny and silvered, and the bottom staple here looks definitely dull and discolored. That does match how they look on the exterior, something I did not notice before until I opened it on up. But this does look to be a slightly different make of staple, where it has a nice shiny little bit. And you can actually see there's a little speck of rust in it right in the middle there, whereas the one that's embedded in there does look pretty solidly tarnished all the way through. So it's just something that you know, kind of drew my attention. Hopefully, you know, CGC won't hold that against the comic, although I'll just give you a little more glare here on the inside of a true epic comic book. All right, folks, welcome back. This copy now has gotten a little bit of hydration. We're going to open it up to the centerfold and just gently iron it out, kind of how we had been on our other books. And hopefully, you know, we can just take it real easy and slow. So I have my parchment paper here. The tacking iron is set just below 2 on the hanger 9. Remember, if you can't get the hanger 9, it's okay. You just need something that's got a little bit of surface area. The Clover comics that I think a lot of people want to use, I think are a little bit, sorry, the Clover irons, I think are probably just a little bit too small surface area. So I'm going to do this off camera, not over the comic, but this is basically what I'm doing just to wet the cotton around. And just give it a little bit of a squeeze out so that it's not oversaturated and dripping. And we're just going to kind of paint a line right down the middle there, and then just very gently iron out that spine. And I like going in from the middle instead of from the outside to, one, minimize any stress on the spine of the cover, which tends to be a lot more fragile, I find. But also the newsprint, I think, is much more malleable. And I'm going so gentle over this right now, I'm not even worrying about the staples. I'm just almost hovering over it. Once we get a little bit more pressure on there, we will definitely be worried about the staples. But at the moment, I'm just trying to relax that, what was a pretty deep curve, I think, on that front cover. Especially. Now, to deal with refolding this, I'm going to try something slightly different than what I have done in the past by having a couple of boards kind of cut in half here, and I'll talk through that in a second. It's not something I've done half this trick before. Well, 3/4. This is the only new part. There you go. So now I have a little bit of actual pressure on it. but still just very, very small amounts of pressure. Definitely not anything. Mostly just doing the heat and the moisture, letting that do almost all the work for us. Very, very, very low pressure. Avoid the staple there. And again, this is the kitchen parchment paper that I'm using. I happen to have the Target brand at the moment, but really any store brand will work. Just make sure it's parchment paper, not wax paper. Wax paper will melt and then melt into the comic book, and then you'll have a very bad day. You might think nobody would ever do that after I say it, but I assure you somebody has done it. It was not me. Easy enough mistake to make. It looks nearly identical to parchment paper. Right in the same store aisle most of the time even. I think that's going to be about good there. And I'm not going to try to overdo it. Now, I think I can get it on the outside here. You know, it's definitely much seriously flattened out. So I think that's good. Now, what I've done in the past is use these clips that I use for the bled interior treatments as well. By the way, somebody asked about the brand here. This is Good Cook brand. And I like these because they have a nice kind of smooth rubber interior, so they don't have any teeth. And it's a relatively large surface area that a relatively weak spring is pushing. So it will snap and hold, but it's not going to leave an indent on the paper, I don't think. Or at least it hasn't with the bled treatments. And one thing that is slightly unfortunate here is you'll notice that the comic is not perfectly flattened out here on the corner. And the top is, I mean, much better, but still not perfect. All right, so at this stage, what I've done before, because we want to, you know, make the top edge and the bottom edge and the open edge as lined up as we can, and these staples, especially the bottom one, are not going to line up perfect anyway, and the top one, we check it as well onto the back cover, so it's definitely not even close to that line, and so is this one. So, you know, we're not going to be able to get the staples to line up, and that's usually when I do this procedure, I, you know, put the backer board in the middle, let the staples line up where they might, and iron that. But in this particular case, the staples are not going to line up, and what we're going to try to do is get the book to line up as good as possible. And so what I'm going to do is fold it and then use a couple of these to clip it. And in the past, what I've done is I've tried to do that with the backer board in the middle, and it's like super annoying to try to adjust the backer board. And so what I've done instead is take a backer board and cut it in half. And then I plan on sliding this in the middle of the folded comic and then just kind of bringing it to the edge and then gently folding that over. And so that's the game plan here. And so let's just start. And I'm just going to try to start right in the middle of the comic. Try to get that to line up as good as I can on that open edge. I'm going to just take my chip clip and chip clip it. And then hopefully that'll look pretty good on the top. Pretty good on the bottom. Unfortunately, that cover is still not perfect. So I'm going to try this slightly different here. See, and you can see the pages were cut to be mostly the same length, and so the center wraps are always poking out a little bit more, so you get that kind of V look there, kind of top down. I'm going to try to borrow that as much as possible. And this front cover does look like it just doesn't quite want to sit on there very well. I hope it's not actually trimmed. But it does look like it could actually be trimmed. mostly because it, well, I don't know, it's got kind of a weird angle to it. I think those center wraps are going to be as lined up as we can get there. Just take the I think it's going to be about as good as we're going to be able to get it lined up. Certainly it's a lot better than it was. I think it's going to be about as good as we're going to get it. So go. Just pull those as close as we can. I want a little bit more humidity in there. I'm not at a stage yet where I want to put any pressure down, so we're just going to again just kind of hover that iron over there and just try to transfer some humidity into that paper just to loosen it up. So this is a no pressure, it's genuinely just a very gentle glide. I think we can be a little bit more, slightly more aggressive. I think that's about where we want it. Right about there. Nope, it's sliding. Off here, something's not feeling right. See it trying to resist. It's definitely trying to resist. It's pretty lined up though. Pretty lined up. Nope, it slid out. Appears to be the top area here that's causing us the grief. So I'm going to line that up and just clamp it first. I'm afraid of the back bottom. Quite the rascal. we're just gonna have to make a decision if we want to do the top corner here or the bottom edge, and I'm just gonna do the top front because people are gonna look at the front. So I think the back is just gonna have to end up where it ends up. If it looks like I'm struggling a little bit, it's because I'm struggling a little bit. Okay. If I look at it on its side, we're just going to have to roll some of that back cover forward. So part of my problem is I was trying to go from the back instead of from the front. So we will try that here. And this is where I'm the most worried about a spine split forming. Add some more humidity here to my cotton round. I don't want to get a little bit of a drop from my glove. I can see where it was creased down first. This actually might be more improved than I'm giving it credit for at the moment. Not at a stage yet where I'm applying any pressure. Go back to the back now. I'm going to undo this now and see how bad it looks. I think that's ultimately quite a bit better. Still not perfect. The pages look a little bit more normal, so that's okay. Certainly, you know, it was quite splayed. So I think this is something we can live with. There we go. So I think this one's now going to get ready for a press, and then I'll bring it on back to you. So I'm going to call that good for the moment. You know, I think you can see right where the original crease was through Thor right there. Hopefully, if I go back and look at the video, that'll be accurate. So all in all, I think it's much, much better. All right, we got one final look here at our Avengers number 4. The truth is that it didn't come out quite as nice as I wanted to. So if you look, it still does have a little bit of splaying up there, and you can see it still a little bit down there. I was thinking about redoing stuff, but looking at that bottom staple, especially how recessed it was and how recessed it still is, as well as the creasing along here. So it always did have this damage on the corner. So that was there in the before pictures. You can see where this creasing is though. That's like prime territory for a spine split. And what I do not want to do is fix a little bit of what is now very gently splayed comic book. I don't want to push that and risk causing a 2 to 3 inch spine split along here. That would be quite devastating. If you're curious what we did do, you can actually see the original crease line right through Thor's left eye here. And so everything on that side of Thor's face was on the back cover, and we've pulled it to the front. So we did get this from what I would say is a horrible miswrap and a very poor alignment to what might be tolerable. You can tell that we did at least something here as well, because this is now safely and securely fitting in a Silver Age bag and board. So with that and the dogs barking, I'm going to sign off here from Top Comics Pressing, and we'll keep our fingers crossed. All right, everybody. CGC is back with a verdict on this copy of the Avengers number 4, one of my genuinely all-time Marvel covers of all time, the first Silver Age appearance of Captain America. And CGC has deemed this one a 4.5 blue label copy, a very respectable grade for this book. You know, we intentionally left some of those defects on there, but what's really nice here is this one did fit in the slab, no problem. And given what it looked like to begin with, that's something I'm a little proud of. So this one looks fantastic, and it really has that Kirby-esque, you know, feel to it, and I just can't appreciate this comic book enough. So hopefully you got some enjoyment watching me struggle with this one a little bit. If you did, leave a thumbs up. Go ahead and click the subscribe button down below, and of course, thank you for your attention. Keep on collecting.